Hey guys, Tanner Games here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Danganronpa 1 and 2. Now, if you told myself, like 3 years ago, that I would fall in love with an anime game, I'd believe it. I would hate it, but I would believe it. Anyway, today, usually I just improvise these reviews, but I have a script here that I wrote because I actually want to have a more in-depth review, I guess, instead of me just rambling on about nothing. So I actually have a script. So in April of this year, I joined a public Discord server surrounding the Shin Megami Tensei spin-off, Persona. Now, for those who know me, I fell in love with Persona 5, and I'm really interested in exploring past Persona games, the Shin Megami Tensei games, and other Atlas games. So far, I've made no progress on that, so that's a good thing. Anyway, now, usually I don't really do this. I stick to private Discord servers. However, I made an exception because I wanted to talk to people about this game I liked. But quickly, I found out a lot of people in that server are actually big fans of Danganronpa. That surprised me a little bit. Now, I've been interested in Danganronpa for actually a while now, but it wasn't until I talked about it with the people in that server that I really wanted to play it. So, a few weeks after I joined that server, around beginning of May, early May, I downloaded Danganronpa 1 and 2 because everyone said it was good. So, now that is 2 months late, actually, 2 months later, what are my thoughts on it now? Did I love the games? Yes. But what are my thoughts? Well, Danganronpa's biggest strength is characters. No matter who you are, there is going to be someone that you love in a Danganronpa game. Now, obviously, I have favorites, some of those being a list here. Byakuya Togami, Gyotaka Ishimaru, Nekomaru Nidai, Chiaki Nanami, I'm sorry guys, Nagito fucking Tomita, Ibuki Miyoda, and of course, the peak of video game characters, Gundam Tanaka. Now, most of these characters are just excellent. Most of the characters in the game are excellent. And then, there's a lot of the other characters are like really good. There's some mediocre ones, but whatever. But then we get into Horrible Zone. There are 3 characters that I hate with a burning passion. And 2 of these aren't controversial, but one is, I think. That being, I hate Ifumi, Hiyoko, and Mikon. They are horrible. I hate them. I honestly just hate these characters. But anyway, hi Pete. Anyway, both of these games have great characters and they're easily lovable. Most of them. But anyway, for this review, I'm only going to be spoiling the first chapter of each game. So, yeah. And so let's jump into that. Obviously, the most important part of Danganronpa are the murder cases, because that is what you're buying the game for. You're buying the game for the murder mystery. And I feel like both games do a great job at making the cases make sense, and everything just works together. Each bit of information will be important later on. Even little dialogue bits that you probably just didn't even pay attention to or just didn't think about too much might be important for the case later on. And that's what I really like about it. It's gonna make sense. It will always make sense. Everything you do will make sense in hindsight because it's written really, really well. So the first case of Danganronpa does a good job at this. Like I said, little bits of dialogue are important to the actual case. Like, for example, there's a little thing where Makoto finds out that his bathroom door is jammed. So he has to know how to open it. Now, only him and Sayaka know how to open it. And that ends up being like a really important piece of information for the case, which my first playthrough I did not expect that. However, there's a one clue in the case that's just so easy that it almost ruins it, and I think you all know what I mean. The clue where Sayaka writes her dying message, she writes 11037. However, all you have to do, flip it upside down, and it reads Leon. And if you find that out, it just ruins the entire case because it's way too easy. I mean, it kind of sucks because everything else is really fun to find out, and then there's just the Leon clue, which is way too easy. Now, I understand why it's easy, because, like, when it got translated, it made more sense in the Japanese version of the game. However, it's still just annoying, because it's just way too easy of a clue, and it gives away who the killer is way too fast. Which is kind of why I like the second game's first case better. Well, a little early on, you find out it's Taro who killed Byakuya. It's hard to find out what happened at all, at least for me. And it's not until later in the case where you're piecing together everything, where it's like, okay, so that's what happened, blah, blah, blah. And I say the second game's cases are definitely harder than the first game's, which makes sense, obviously, because sequels do that sometimes. And I just like the second game's first case better. And I feel like, but they both do a great job at having every piece of information count, every dialogue thing matter, and ultimately, they're both great cases. My one thing about the Danganronpa 2 case is that Teru's execution isn't as impactful as Leon's. It just isn't as good as Leon's, which isn't that important, because Teru's execution is fine, but Leon's was just much better, and it kind of just set the mood of, oh, so this is what the game's gonna be. But yeah, they both do a good job. Now, a more general criticism I have for the murder cases is that they rarely use the character's ultimate abilities for the murders, because if you don't know, each character has some sort of ultimate ability, like ultimate martial artist, ultimate swimmer, ultimate Gundam Tanaka, and so that is really a unique thing, which they don't really explore too often, because there's not a lot of examples where they use that to, what am I trying to say? There's not a lot of moments where the ultimate ability is important to finding out what happened in the murder. There's little bits in some cases where the ultimate ability is important, like Teru's case, where his ultimate ability is important because him being the ultimate chef explains why he's in the kitchen. So that makes sense, but most of the time they don't use the ultimate ability, which is kind of disappointing. I wish there was more cases that use the ultimate ability. However, at the same time, I feel like if the ultimate ability was important, it would be a little more obvious. So that might be an issue, but I don't know. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the story of each game. The story is insane. I love it. It's stupid. I love it. Without getting into spoilers, the plot twists at the end of each game are it's just so stupid and fun that, like it's serious enough that you're interested in the story because of how it impacts the characters. But it's stupid and fun enough that you don't have to take it seriously at the same time. Alright, anyway, which is a nice change of pace because I've been playing a lot of games recently where the story is super important, and while I like that better, it's just nice to have that change of pace where I don't have to take the story seriously. It's just dumb fun, and it's nice. And to conclude the review, Danganronpa 1 and 2 are great games. They're incredible. I fell in love with them. But I would not recommend them for everyone. Not everyone's going to fall in love with them. Because I feel like not a lot of people are going to like the visual novel aspect, or just a lot of people might not like the murder cases if they're just not into that kind of stuff. But they're really fun games, and if you think you would like it, you 100% would. Now, the big question. What do I prefer? Danganronpa 1 or Danganronpa 2? Yeah.